Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this latest edition of RE370, where I take old stories I've narrated and update into modern audio standards. This particular story is called Lock of the Gore, written by bellumaster. The Gore are a powerful race. 8 feet tall, thickly built. They have limbs wrapped in muscles that bunch like constrictors. A tight layer of skin wrapped around their ragged physique is reminiscent of a tightly stretched plastic. A thick, angular jaw, eyes that are on the verge of predatory, and a deep indented nose tell of generations of peace turned to war. There are no records of what happened that caused the Gore to develop such a raw amount of physical power. They share stories orally, and only amongst themselves. Any outsiders that hear their stories are either sworn to secrecy or caused to be unable to relay information. Most advanced scientific communities could attempt to discover the long-forgotten catastrophe, given the research rights and access to the planet of Loon. But such privileges are not offered. The Gore are a fiercely territorial race. Immensely thick fingers on each of their forearms. Their physiology is similar to apes in that the location of the tendons allow for a higher amount of leverage, and therefore force, to be applied through their limbs. Their hind legs are similar to those of the kangaroo, with powerful tendons that act as a spring and allows them to travel long distances efficiently. Also of note is the matted black hair of the Gore, male and female alike. Should confrontation arise and conflict occur, the victor will take the lock of their opponent's mane and add it to their own. In this way, the outward worth of an individual is oftentimes judged, with individuals becoming leaders or beggars respectively. The locomotion of the Gore is quadrupedal when not bounding, with their 2 lower arms free for movement. In times of duress, the Gore will rise onto 2 legs, allowing their muscular and heavier set arms to be free to deal damage. Studies imply that the Gore merely travel on 4 limbs as a matter of comfort, not necessity. To the untrained eye, the Gore would seem at surface value to be nothing more than a particularly dangerous foreign exhibit. However, experience has taught all races that have come into contact with them that this group of beings hold aloft their culture as their greatest strength. The bond between the Tha, a richly combined selection of individuals, is one of the strongest social forces in the known universe. The entire society is composed of various stars and larger rakims that compete and protect one another. It can be compared to brotherhood, deep friendship, and the bond between battlemates combined. It is not unheard of for a Gore to travel across systems at the mere call of a Tha mate. They also hold the chain of command in high regard, though reserve the right to contest orders from their superiors. All these traits, and many others besides, allot a formidable presence to the Gore in the galactic scale of social and combative arenas. When Lo stood at ease, his joints locked in position. He could stand this way for days, though he no longer had to after attaining the rank of head initiator.
Initiator,
Speak.
approaching the skirmish remnants. Orders?
Venlo glanced briefly at the 16 displays in front of the 4 technicians before him. Shattered ships slowly swirled around each other, orbiting the gravitational well of a collapsed drive. No crew unless life is measured. Collect the scraps. Fire them into the nearest analytic and reclamation composium. The head technician grunted and relayed commands to his tar mates. Large cleaner mechs detached from the bottom of the ship and began scanning, scooping, and storing the refuse. Some species allowed waste to acclimate in their skies. The Gore didn't.
Initiator, life signs found.
Define and record.
Small, not native to this area. Must have been a stowaway or a cargo on the ship, running for matches in the... Oh.
What do we have?
One of those humans. Didn't think they'd get out this far so fast.
Windows nodded. It's only a couple light years. Bring it in. Contain and detox. Send Tal Shah to debrief and inquire.
The technician grunted.
Within hours, the space was clean, and the particle analyzer was dropped in place to monitor spatial activity for the foreseeable future. But Lo looked on passively, partly regretful that such a fight had transpired in his route, and wholly regretful that he had not been there to participate. An hour later, Tal Shah loped slowly onto the bridge. He didn't say anything. When Lo stared straight ahead, he would be addressed properly or not at all. There were a few low grunts from Talshaw, supposedly polite methods of gaining attention, until he broke.
Initiator, I am confused.
You were instructed to debrief and inquire. Did you not fulfill your duties?
I did, Initiator, but I have learned nothing.
Venlo turned and fixed his eyes on Talshaw.
How can you have learned nothing? Surely you must have something to show for your trouble.
Talshaw paused for a moment, then turned around. Venlo flinched. One of his locks was missing.
His blood began to rise. I will deal with this.
Initiator, don't.
The bridge shuddered as an initiator bounded out, strategically placed handholds in the corridors that allowed for maximum speed to be attained. He was at the inquiry chamber in moments. The portal slid open to accommodate his colossal frame. Quivering with anticipation, Venlo entered. Off in the corner, the human sat, a paltry, weak-looking thing. He couldn't have been over 5 feet tall, and looked quite old and frail. It was probably just a ruse, though. Venlo had heard of the physical prowess of humans. Some races considered them to be godlike. It was simply an excuse for their own weakness. His voice was powerful, resonant.
I am the initiator. What have you done to my second?
The human looked up. Eyes set in wrinkled skin met his. A small amount of hair grew from the thing's chin. He didn't look powerful, not at all. Venlo's child could defeat this human as easily as a Goma.
Whatever happened to him, he did it to himself.
Greedy, frail, how could this being have beaten his second? Venlo calmed himself enough to remember protocol.
State your name.
Fi, Wang Fi.
What happened in the skirmish?
The old human raised a hand and waved it about. Venlo bristled at the motion. Oh, you know, here, then there.
What?
I was simply doing as I do. Can't help it that I got caught up in some firefight. Definitely can't help it that the bastards left their windows open. Venlo paused. There was 5 different topics that could be pursed, all equally vague.
Fi, you are under custody of the Gore Adon, bosses for possibly assisting unsanctioned combat outside of the theater of war.
The human didn't say anything.
Have you no defense? No admissions?
I have no defense.
As I admit to nothing. I welded myself into a locker when I knew the ship would go. You're trying to arrest me for self-preservation.
Venlo was taken aback.
That isn't what I mean. You'd rather have me throw myself into an exploding ship than survive. A poor policy you have. Do you often go around arresting survivors of violent, unprovoked attacks? No. The Gore Dawn forces strive to. You may as well jettison me now. Return me to where I was. Go ahead, weld me back inside my locker and push me out into space. Though that would be killing me, an unarmed prisoner, wouldn't it?
Venlo blinked. This was not going all like he had planned.
Fi. It is true that we do not know the precise situation yet, but I need your cooperation so that I have something to report. You are an eyewitness. You know, I think the lack of oxygen and loud noise has messed with my head a bit. I can't remember a thing. You can push further if you like, but that would violate the Sentient Compliance Act, Region 440. Pushing any further amounts to torture.
Venlo had lost all semblance of anger during his confusion. Now it rose. He spoke through gritted teeth. He would test this human and see if it stood up to the tale surrounding its kind, and hopefully blow off the frustration that had risen during this conversation.
Very well, I challenge you to combat.
The human looked at him, eyes narrowed.
I refuse.
What?
You cannot refuse. It is not done. I can. In acknowledging my refusal, you support me. To attack me now would be to attack someone outside of your laws of combat, and yourself due to your support. How can you? I invoke the right of civilian sanctuary. You must take me to the nearest Hellworld and guarantee me safe passage as a non-combatant, or deny the position of the Corridon forces in the Universal Treatment Agreement.
Venlo wanted to strike the human. He wanted to grind it to a pulp beneath his hands, and he could. All he had to do was reach out. The initiator took a breath.
Your invocation has been noted. We will be there within a fortnight.
The human tipped his head.
Thank you, Initiator. I will submit a positive review to the Ethics Committee regarding your actions.
Venlo stepped aside. The portal closed behind him. He felt like he was shaking off weight or a net of some sort. He didn't feel like the initiator any longer. He reached back and withdrew a ceremonial dagger from his belt.
Talshaw looked at him sadly. I tried to tell you, Tarmate. I am sorry.
Venlo grunted. It had been years since he'd felt the blade on his locks. The head technician came down the corridor as the blade sliced through the last strands of one of his finer mats of hair. The technician bounded up. "Initiator, a ship is—" The words died in his lips as he watched his leader in fear. "Initiator, why, did the human beat you?" Venlo held the lock in front of him and returned the dagger to its sheath. I do not understand why, but I've lost this engagement." End of story. I'd greatly like to thank our Tier 5 channel members, Caspar Arnholtz, John Creighton, Manatharia, 050, Dragzoon WRE, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.